I think the phrase fake it till you make it is a little bit corny, but I do think there's some truth to that statement when it comes to playing guitar and musical performance in general. And in this video, I'm gonna give you some quick and easy tips on how to fake your way into sounding like a great lead guitar player. All right, now tip number one on how to fake your way into being a great lead guitarist is to just know when to play major or minor. I can almost guarantee you that most music you're gonna find yourself playing rests on the major or minor tonality. And knowing whether to play major or minor just shows how much command you have over melodic expression when you're playing. Because major and minor tonalities actually convey an emotion. And if you're playing guitar, even if you're just playing to yourself, you're conveying an emotion. So if you're gonna play in major, it's generally gonna sound happy, joyful, just upbeat. Whereas if you play minor, it's gonna sound possibly sad. It'll sound more somber, more serious. So between those two, you actually cover a lot of ground on the emotions that you yourself experience even when you listen to music. There's some songs that just put you in a good mood. You can't help but move or dance to them. And there's other songs that just hit you right in the feels and sometimes even make you want to cry. And those two powerful emotions are at your fingertips when you're thinking about playing between major and minor. So for example, let's say we're playing over a very simple chord progression that's just A minor and F. Just those two chords. At a nice slow tempo, when you arpeggiate them, you can get something like this. All right, so very much a minor sound. So we could play A minor pentatonic and we'll be golden. So I kept it really simple. I just played A minor pentatonic. I did throw in a diatonic note in there, I think, which is straight out of the A natural minor scale or the A Aeolian mode, right? But just because it felt right and it was working, right? So I was just playing through that minor tonality, towing the line of A minor and just matching the overall vibe. And yeah, I'd say it worked. So if you find yourself playing over the same kind of deal, right? I'll turn that loop back on. And you want to fake some good lead guitar and you know your A minor pentatonic scale, which if you don't already know, we got tons of lessons covering that stuff. So just check those out and you'll be good. But just working with that simple pentatonic box, like right here. Just keeping right within those pentatonic boxes. You'd be pretty safe just doing that. So you're really just, again, towing the line of A minor, using something real simple like a single scale, and then just feeling it out. And if you play it with some confidence and a little bit of gusto, you can play something real simple like that. It doesn't need to be flashy or shreddy or crazy. And I'd say you'd sound like a pretty competent lead guitarist. Now let's take a look at a major example. So let's say we're playing an A major now, and we're just dealing with an A chord and a D chord. Again, real simple. So all we got to worry about now is we're in A major. So we want to play in a major tonality. So you can actually take the approach that we did with the minor example and apply it to major. So if we're talking about the A major pentatonic scale, for example, right, which again, we got tons of lessons covering how to play that exact scale and how to actually use it. So that would be a great prerequisite for you when you're getting back to this stuff. But assuming you already know how to play that scale, whether it's that G+3 pattern or the 3-for-1 octave system, it's all gonna work for you. So same deal, we don't need to play anything fancy or flashy, just keep it real simple and just fit the vibe. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw on that major loop that I just created. So we got A and a D chord, real simple, and that just keeps repeating. So here we go, let's play some A major pentatonic and do nothing fancy or flashy. So if I were sitting across from you and just playing that chord progression and you were playing lead just like I did just then, I would say you're a pretty great lead guitarist because you got good taste, you know that you're playing a major tonality and you're following that well, and you didn't have to do anything technically impressive for me to think that. And look, I'm not anti playing fast. I love fast playing. I think it's cool. I think there's a time and place. But to be honest, I will take slow, emotive playing that's real and authentic over just, flashing tricks all the time. The next tip on how to fake great lead guitar is to be able to play the same lick in different positions. So what do I mean by that? All right, let's go back to A minor pentatonic. Let's say we're working with that. So playing the same lick, let's say this is the lick we're playing. Pretty simple. But if you want to be able to play that in, let's say, the A minor pentatonic position here, right? It plays very differently in that position, but we're able to find those notes. Now let's try them here in a different position here. There you go. So it's a hallmark of a guitar player that really knows the fretboard to be able to play the same lick in multiple positions. So let's say you know all of your caged pentatonic shapes, like the C pattern, A pattern, G pattern, E pattern, and D pattern, which again, we got tons of lessons covering that stuff. If you already know that stuff, you can take a real simple lick, let's say in like the G pattern, and then try to find that using your ear, right, in these other patterns, like the A pattern. Let's see, I did, so. There it is. Let's try it here in the E pattern. Or maybe the D pattern. Or in the C pattern. It's the same lick, but notice as I get up the neck and I play them on the lower strings, the timbre of it changes, right? It's much brighter sounding here. Right? So you get this different sound. So even though it's the same lick, not every lick, played in those different positions is necessarily created equal. It's got a unique kind of sound. And you can play into that and use that to your advantage if you're trying to match the vibe, right? So if you're playing over something that's maybe a little bit dark and brooding sounding, you probably want more of a darker sound from your string. You can even get this almost phasey sound. Like for example, playing it there as opposed to where it's a lot more bitey and bright, using those top strings. So what I recommend you do is start real simple with a lick. It doesn't have to be a complicated lick. Just something like, I don't know, something like real simple. Let's try and find those in the other positions. There it is. And use your ear. That's what I'm doing. This is all real time. I didn't rehearse this, I'm just trying to show you what it's essentially going to look like, So what was it? No, it was, right, that was it. Okay. There it is. There it is. Why we're getting into all those different sounds, using the different strings, same notes, different strings, getting, a slightly different sound. So that's pretty cool. And like I said, it's a hallmark of a guitar player that really knows the fretboard. So even if you're playing a really simple lick like that, but then you're like, I'm gonna do it up here too. It looks like your way around that fretboard, even though you're technically playing the same exact lick. So that's what I invite you to do, is when you're done watching this video, just grab your guitar and just work through, if you know your caged pentatonic patterns, doesn't matter if it's major or minor, start with a really simple lick, 2 notes, 3 notes, real simple. And then use your ear, because those same notes are contained in every pentatonic position. So use your ear to find them and then just recreate that lick. And you might even, find out that you like how a certain lick sounds in a new position, and then you'll start playing it here. If you're like, I like doing this here, as opposed to, which honestly is more comfortable here in the A pattern. And And if I wanted to do it an octave up, you know, it sounds cool. I would do that there as opposed to, ooh, it's hard to play it up here. I really like the bite, you know, when we're using these higher strings. Oh, and by the way, if you're getting value out of this lesson, please hit that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't already. It really helps us out and it'll give you a front seat to all of the new lessons we got coming your way. So I thank you in advance and let's get right back to business. And last thing with this tip, let's say you have like 3 or 4 licks that you learn on every position, right? You put in the time, you got there. Now what you can do is just make slight changes to the licks and you can essentially multiply them like on an exponential level where you'll have like a ton of licks that are essentially just different plays off of the same lick. And you could run that through as 16-bar solo if you wanted to. And again, you don't have to do anything fancy or flashy. It just shows that you know your fretboard, or at least fake that you know your fretboard, even contained within those handful of licks. And man, you got plenty of content to work with that you can show up at any jam and run through those licks, no problem. Finally, tip number 3 on how to fake your way into some great lead guitar is to sustain notes as long as possible. You know, the most impactful moments in my life where I've seen great guitar players perform almost always involve just holding out a note for what seems like forever. They just hold a note and the sustain just takes over and it's this almost transcendent moment. Those moments when I see great guitar players play, they stick with me much longer than, oh, they played some crazy lick. You know, one of the beautiful things about the pentatonic scale, major or minor, is that there's so many great points where you can just bend a string and sustain. I mean, you don't have to bend to sustain a note, but honestly, it just makes it that much more powerful. If you were to take a note like this, and just ring it out as long as it can go. Now, every guitar is built different, you know. Sometimes it helps to have a little bit of extra distortion just to give you that saturation to help with that sustain, or even having a compressor could really help you get there. If let's say your guitar is not that sustainy, right? And that's another thing you can do too, is you can kind of like egg on the note by doing just like I Want You by the Beatles, right? Right? You can just do something like that and just like, you know, that's just kind of where I feel like as a listener, you know, you just get locked in. You're like, whoa, like how long is this note gonna go on for? And you're just like, and it's almost hypnotizing, right? And you can just hold that. And doing something like that is just, I don't know, man, that still gives me chills when I hear a guitar player doing that. I get more excited about stuff like that than about really crazy, fast, shreddy stuff these days, you know? Maybe I'm getting older, I don't know, but I'm okay with it. So just like in that previous tip on finding the same lick in the different pentatonic positions, find some points of sustain. So let's start here in the A pattern. Here's a good spot right here on the 3rd fret of the B string. A little bit harder to bend, but you can do it. Great little sustain point. You can even do it on the 5th fret. Like a 1.5 step bend. Of course, the G pattern, you got these spots here. Right here in the E pattern. D pattern, same deal. So there's just lots of points where you can just bend the strings. And you can just make it whine, you know? So it's okay to just take your time when you're playing these simple licks. You know, the great thing about sitting with your guitar and just finding those sustain points is you really get to know your instrument. You can, because some guitars, they have like certain sweet spots on the fretboard, and every guitar is different. So you never really know until you try. So sit there and try and find those sustain points, and you're gonna feel more connected with your instrument too. And it's gonna be one of those things where you just know that if I do a bend here, it's just gonna sing just a little longer and a little louder than the other notes, you know? Not necessarily on this guitar, but just as an example, you know? On this guitar, this one right here. It loves that spot right there. You can get those like almost whale sounds. I'm telling you, it's a good bonding experience with your instrument, just to find those little sustain points and go through the pentatonic patterns, find those little spots, and then work them into your licks. So everything we've covered so far, knowing when to play major and minor, knowing the same licks in different positions, sustaining notes as long as possible. Those three things are gonna be everything that you need to pass yourself off as a great guitar player. But the truth is, even while you're faking it, you're actually learning and growing in a direction that is taking you to that exact goal of actually being a great lead guitar player. And when you follow through on the advice that I've given you, you are literally going to be faking it until you make it. The important part being that you're actually gonna make it. Now, with everything we've covered in this lesson, if there's some things that you're not quite hip to yet, that's perfectly okay. Like I said, we have so many lessons on the mechanics of soloing, including using the major and minor pentatonic scales. What I'm about to share with you is actually going to give you all the tools that you need to come on back to this lesson and really approach it like a pro. And it is this lesson right here. This, my friend, is a free lesson just for you that's going to show you how to instantly solo in any key. You're going to be able to take what we've learned today and actually learn the mechanics of the minor and major pentatonic scales and how to play them in all 12 musical keys. And the best part is it's going to show you all that stuff in record time. You're going to be amazed at how quickly you're going to understand this stuff. Just be sure to click here to claim your free copy or check the link in the description box. What I've shared with you today is meant to ramp up what you already know to give you the ability to present it in a way that is confident and that will convince everybody around you that you are a great guitar player, even if you don't feel like you are yet.